Hello everyone. Today I have a topic. I can't even express myself in words right now. My jaw literally hit the floor when I saw this. I'm going to post some screenshots of what I actually saw within this video so you can understand what I was looking at. Because I'm still at a loss for words. I don't even know how to feel right now. I don't know if I want to bust out laughing. Like, is this some kind of typo or a joke? I'm really not sure. I'm just in literal disbelief. So this is the backstory to what happened. Yesterday, morning time, at some point, I received an urgent message from my bank. I thought, what is it now? You know, there's scams going around, so I never click links and all that. I don't even look at half of this stuff. I just delete it. But the headline drew me in. I didn't open the email though, just in case. But I read the headline and it was talking about all these families displaced. I'm like, what are they talking about? So I Googled our local news to find out. See, I don't really watch a lot of local news. I'm more of a global news person. I look around the whole picture. I don't just focus on my little town or whatever. And we don't really have that much news to begin with. So I Googled this story and it came back as a true story. This was no scam going around. The email from my bank was accurate. I still didn't click on it, but you know, I got the scoop. A bunch of families were displaced after a terrible fire that swept through an entire apartment house complex. My cousin actually lived there before she was married. It was very affordable. I think she paid like $800 a month in rent, possibly early 2000s, maybe late 90s. But it was affordable and it was nice. You know, I wouldn't call it luxury living, but they had an outdoor pool she could use in the summer. And it was cozy. I was raised in the 70s, 80s, Gen X, okay? And the stereotype is true. I was out of my house at 17. Not because anybody kicked me out, but because I couldn't take it anymore. I left on my own. When I left, the first thing I did was I found a cottage, and it was in a terrible part of a city. Terrible part of a city. But I lived there with a roommate because I couldn't afford whatever it was, like $400 a month. So I lived there with a roommate at first for a few months. It wasn't much, but it was fully furnished, had a decent sized backyard, and it was pretty safe. It had a driveway. I locked my doors at night, but it was okay. You know, I didn't need anything extravagant or luxury. So that's where I lived. My roommate got a different job opportunity and left, so I had to leave. And I was also in college at the time. I had some money saved because I always worked a job when I was in high school. I had a couple of them actually. So I did have a good chunk of money saved. But back then, you got to remember, things were so much different back then. College, for example, was nothing like today. I paid my way. Like I didn't have a student loan, okay? And when I went to college, I found work. It was plentiful. I had multiple interviews. I had a pick of where I wanted to work. It wasn't a matter of having to take an option because that was the only option. After I got this job, of course, I was making decent money. I could afford a little bit more rent. I found out that there was a duplex right down the street from where I was working. I could walk to work. I didn't even need a car. I had a car, but if I wanted to save on gas, which wasn't expensive at all back then, I could just walk. And I moved into this apartment. I could have my baby grand piano there. It was a beautiful, like, Victorian style house that somebody turned into a duplex. It was on a tight street though, so there's no driveway. The parking was out front of this house. I did have my gas cap stolen off my car, but aside from that, I was pretty safe. The rent was $300 a month. 2-story apartment, Victorian style, It had like 4 bedrooms, 1 bathroom. The bathroom kind of was like, it had one of those clawfoot tubs, no shower. But I could walk to work. That made up for it. Then a friend of mine got a job transfer and said, hey, I'm moving into this other city. I think you could do really well out there. Why don't you come with me and we share the rent on a townhouse? Moving on up in the world, So that's what I did. I moved an hour away. All my relatives were back where I was from. I had no family, no friends, just this roommate. My friends, they didn't want to come see me. They were too far away. But what happened was the rent was high. Well, for me at the time, it was like $675 a month. Plus my commute, plus the daily grind of driving an hour each way to my job. And at that time, I was just beginning my career, so I really wasn't confident enough to like move on to a different job at that point. I wanted to stay where I was at. So I decided, okay, well, you know what? I'm gonna move back. Got out of there, went back home, lived with my grandparents for about a month, and then found another place. It was basically a penthouse suite on top of an apartment building, and it was overlooking the ocean. I had full view of fireworks. Everything that they did on that ocean, I had full view from my living room. It was beautiful. Very nice, all updated, beautiful. But it was $575. After buying certain pieces of furniture and borrowing furniture from friends and relatives, I didn't want to be that broke. It was way too expensive. But I had to move out. I had no choice because of a heating and cooling issue. So everybody in the apartment building had to move out, and we all did it on the same weekend, where I found a room to rent for $300 a month. And it was literally right down the road from my office. So I could, once again, walk to work. And it was safe. The landlord actually lived on the 3rd floor. I shared this apartment with a lady. She was a fabulous cook. I didn't know how to cook. It worked out well. Everything was furnished. I didn't need anything, so I could give all my borrowed furniture back to the people who owned it. All I needed was my car, my clothes. That was it. I had a bedroom, and then the living room, kitchen, and bath were shared. It was a very pleasant experience overall. I loved this lady. She was a great woman to room with. Her husband was in prison. So I learned a lot from her, especially how to make some mac and cheese, and she would chop up this red pepper and broccoli in it. Oh my goodness. I have someone in my life who is a friend, and I've been trying to distance myself from her because we no longer share the same value system, and we see somebody struggling today who's 20, 25, and we judge them. We've developed biases, and we say, when I was your age, I was out at 17, I had my own place, I had my own car, I had a job, I made my own money. Why are you still living at home? And that is the attitude of my friend. And she felt that kids need to be out of the house by 17. I simply disagree. I don't feel that way. I just don't. Just because I was out of the house at 17 doesn't mean I expect everybody to be out of the house at 17. Everybody has different circumstances. This bank email was basically saying there were these families displaced because there was a fire that ripped through this massive apartment complex. I had never even heard of it. I didn't know this place existed. But then when I looked it up, I said, oh yeah, duh. That's where my cousin lived for a while. And she lived there way back when. It's always been an okay place. She had wall-to-wall carpeting. She had a nice sized living room, a bedroom, a very small kitchen. But compared to some of the apartments I looked at when I was living in an apartment, it was much nicer. The nosy part of my brain decided to look at their website to see if they're helping the people that were displaced. I just wanted to see what the website said. I went to the website and the rent popped up. That was the first thing. The rent popped up on the screen and it showed an astonishing figure. I thought they added a 0 in there, and I thought that can't be right. That's a mistake. So silly me. I decided that that can't be right. I'm going to look it up on Google to see if Zillow has picked it up, if Realtor.com has picked it up, and all these other websites for rentals and stuff. I'm not looking for a rental. Also, not for nothing, but it does create another problem. Because if you have an apartment building that houses 1,000 people and they're displaced now, yikes, because housing is at a bare minimum here. You know, to find an apartment is sometimes a long waiting list. So I thought to myself, what a shame. Where are these people going to go now? And they've lost everything, mind you. So when I went to Google and went to the other websites, lo and behold, it was the same thing. And I thought to myself, how could anybody afford rent like that? Like, I can't even fathom that. I really honestly can't fathom the prices of rent. I thought this was a joke or something, and that's a horrible joke, you know? Like, that's got to be a typo. That's got to be a cut and paste typo. They meant one less zero in there or something. That can't be right. So then, just for kicks and giggles, I just put in another area, not mine. I wanted to know what the rent was. If this was just exclusive to me, I was trying to convince myself that this was a typo, you see. And it was worse. And I'm not talking about a mansion on the water here. I'm not talking about a 10-room house with 5 bathrooms and an elevator. These are apartments. You get one little space, very little square feet, perhaps a parking space. If you're seeing this on a screen and you're seeing the same thing I'm saying, it's real. That's not AI. Those are screenshots from different places that have rentals. And I'm saying to myself, that's 4 or 5 times a mortgage payment from like 6 years ago. I realize housing has gone up. I'm not naive. I'm so speechless about this that I can't even form a conclusion to what I'm saying here. I guess what I'm saying is, I don't know who can afford this.